Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is just eat meat, and that's what you should do. But if you're hiking or road tripping or stuck at work and you want something nutritious that is just meat, fat, and possibly salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. I like this product not only because it is pure meat, but also because I really want the carnivore market to thrive as well. The more we support meat only products, the more people will make meat only products, and this will bring this into the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to check out, then take a look and use my discount code HTC to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the How to Carnivore podcast. And we're back with Anthony Chafee, the Plant Free MD. And today we have a very special guest, Professor Bart Kay, who's well known on the interwebs for calling out nutritional BS. That's that's how I discovered him anyway. So Bart, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you here. But I know that you're a professor and you're extremely experienced personally with keto and now carnivore. I'm wondering if you could give us a little intro about the life of Bart Kay at the moment.
Yeah. I turned 50 earlier this year, and I started the ketogenic way of eating, way of life about 27 years ago, well before it was cool, well before it was known about. And it was because I was working with some academics in an institution at the time who were sort of on the cutting edge of this. It was just getting started back then as a thing, even though we've been eating ketogenic ways for, probably 4.5 million years. In the last couple of hundred, we've forgotten all about that. So it's when I say it's a new thing, I mean recently. So it made sense to me. I jumped on board with it back at that stage, and it had quite remarkable effects, if you like, on my health. I had, up to that point, a long history of quite serious mental health issues, quite debilitating anxiety, believe it or not, agoraphobia even at one point. For over a year, I never left my house. Quite serious bipolar, and then a bit later on down the track I ended up with fibromyalgia rheumatica and other idiopathic forms of inflammatory analgesic conditions of various different kinds as well. Ended up on a suite of pharmacological interventions, shall we say, and also had a very, very serious blood pressure issue as well for about 5 years. Quite high blood pressure, and all of that resolved pretty much to, I would say, maybe an 80% health status, and I maintained that for about 20 years or so, until about 7 years ago, when I started hearing about this idea that we should just eat meat and fat. Let's get rid of any vestige of plant material, carbohydrates and fiber, and certainly seed oils that might have been in our diet up to that stage. And being the sort that's always been prepared to try the new thing, being on the cutting edge and to do N=1, I went, right, let's do this. So I did that about 7 years ago. And I thought I was 80% healthy. I was nowhere near it. It was more like 50. So that last 5% transgression against carnivore, you would think, oh, well, I'll get a 5% penalty for that 5% transgression because that would be fair and just and reasonable in the universe, wouldn't it? No, you get a 50%. Well, I personally got a 50% penalty off a 5% transgression, which is kind of a blessing, actually, because it means that, that's the thing that motivates me to stay much closer to 195. So that was my experience with the diet and the health, etc. Also, I'm carrying probably 15, possibly 20 pounds less body fat.
Awesome.
as a function of the carnivore thing. My health in general, not just the mental health, but my health in general has improved vastly. The fibromyalgia is a thing of the past. Pretty much everything's on track. So that's great. In terms of the background, who am I? Where do I come from? I come from an academic background, as you can tell. I've worked in various different universities over the years in New Zealand, Australia, the UK and the US, teaching health science widely. Specifically, I started out actually as an exercise physiologist first and foremost. Then I branched out into human nutrition, and finally, the last sort of 5 years or so of my career, I was actually a specialist cardiovascular pathophysiologist. So that's what I was doing in that regard. And then in terms of various consultancies and things I've done, I've worked with the Australian Defence Force and the New Zealand Defence Force on their fitness training requirements and how they decide if someone's operationally fit or otherwise. A little bit to do with the nutrition as well, although they pretty much ignored the advice on that, surprise. And also a funny little rugby team that wears black a lot and runs around losing to Ireland and things sometimes.
Well, have you actually worked with the All Blacks?
Yeah.
Wow. Doing the exercise physiology stuff? Or?
Yeah, it was on the exercise physiology side. At that time, I was responsible for identifying the movement patterns required of all 15 playing positions during test matches played in 2010, and it was in prep for the 2011 World Cup campaign, so that they could train the All Blacks specifically to what was required on the day, because there's all sorts of guessing about what fitness requirements are important for athletes and military personnel and whatever. So my approach was always to say, well, let's not guess what they need. Let's actually find out. Let's do the analysis. So what I did was I sat through 4 entire test matches played in 2010 against 4 different international opponents and tracked the movement patterns of all 15 players throughout the match. And it was using a camera that was mounted on the roof of the grandstand looking down on the pitch. And basically it was a manual tracking of every single player. What's he doing? He's walking, he's running, he's standing still, he's tackling, he's being tackled, he's running onto the ball, he's going this direction, he's going that direction. This is the speed of movement across ground, all of it. So that was my involvement with that.
Nice. And then did you get a chance to incorporate like diet and recommend? I think last time when we spoke, you mentioned that a couple of guys actually started taking on like at least a meat-based diet, if not a carnivore diet.
Yeah, a couple of them did at the time, and at least one of those guys is still carnivore, even though he's now well and truly retired from international rugby. He still plays club rugby, by the way, in Auckland.
Oh, awesome.
I'm not sure about the other one that did. One of the issues was that the All Blacks have a deal with Sanitarium, and there's adverts on TV here every 5 minutes. See, a current batch of All Blacks sitting around a table at outdoor training, having their Weet-Bix before training, because absolutely you can't exercise without eating your Weet-Bix first, of course.
Yeah.
So, they weren't prepared to go that route and to suggest that, obviously, because that would be a problem in terms of their sponsorship deal.
Might have been why they lost to Ireland. There you go.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Too many Weet-Bix.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I know Sonny Bill, the highest profile All Black, is carnivore or
Is he?
95 to 100%.
That's news to me as well. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, him and he and Quade Cooper did carnivore together probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when Quade was doing sort of his comeback.
Yeah.
Those boys cycle onto carnivore when they need to, for sure.
I do need to admit to being a rugby league man. Okay. I know I have to hand in my Kiwi card for doing that, my New Zealander card, but rugby union is not the go for me. It's always been rugby league first and foremost. I actually was a referee for about 15 years too, at quite a high level. So, and having done the analysis on fitness requirements and stuff, what you find is that league players are much more active during a game of league than union players are during a game of union.
Hmm.
It's an amazing thing. Anyway, that's for another day.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, they never had rugby league where I was in the States. That was they had someone on the East Coast, but that was it. It always looked like a lot of fun as well. You know, it was all of my favorite parts of the rugby. It's just, you know, it's just absolutely just smash mouth rugby. You take the ball, you smash someone, and then you just get up and you do it again. None of this, you know, the bullshit in the rucks and you know, all that stuff is just tedious, you know. And you could you know, tee off on people in the rucks as well, but it was just like, you know, the fun part was just, you know, laying into somebody,
Yeah.
you know, and that's all league is, you know. It's just like they've cut out everything else.
Yeah.
So
it's much more like gridiron
than
union is in that regard.
Yeah.
Except league players don't wear helmets and pads and stuff. They just smash each other with it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That was good. It was even when I was in New Zealand, you know, playing down there with like the junior national team, like people we were playing like with and against, you know, they were even saying, they were like, yeah, actually, you know, we play union, but like we're league fans, and like that's just like that was just the popular sport at the time, even though like, you know, 15s I believe is and was the national sport. You know, everyone was like, the actual popularity was certainly in league, which was interesting.
Yeah, rugby union is the national religion here in New Zealand. It's above a sport. It's above, you know, any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, when I was a schoolboy, the school rules were very, very clear. Boys play rugby, and if they also wanted to play soccer or whatever else, they could do that on Sunday.
Yeah.
And the soccer association had to set up the competitions for Sunday because on Saturday, boys play rugby. It wasn't even an option.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, like I've been trying to get, you know, the people, you know, back in Seattle, like in Seattle Seawolves, guys that, you know, I grew up playing with, and you know, we're sort of involved in that, and some of the guys, you know, that are playing now, trying to get into carnivore diet, and some of them have, but then they'll, you know, and they'll feel great, and they'll say like, you know, I've never felt stronger, I've never felt better, and then you know, went home and, you know, like with my parents and had some rice, so I'm like, I guess that's it, and then they like, and that's it, and they sort of give up. You know, I kind of remind them like, well, you can get back into it, you know, and so I'm like trying to like see how I can sort of influence them to actually like take this up, and like maybe even, you know, just run it as like a carnivore team and just see how they do, because like, you know, it'd just be phenomenally better for them, you know, and if you know, Sonny Bill is doing this, you know, I think that's probably a good endorsement.
Pretty good ambassador.
Yeah, exactly. But there are a number of league players as well in Australia that have started going carnivore as well, and just sort of rekindled their career. You know, they're sort of, you know, at sort of the tail end of their career, and all of a sudden they go carnivore, and they're back in the mix, you know, and getting starting roles. Yeah, that's a shame though that sort of wheat bix had their hook in them, because like, just I couldn't imagine any worse breakfast in my at all.
No, I can't either.
Yeah, just a cardboard.
Yeah. So let's dig into the nutrition stuff a little. So, Bart, you're strict carnivore more or less, and you have been for a few years. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I started carnivore at sort of probably a 90% level about 7 years ago. And then a couple of years ago, I went, well, this is not quite right yet. Let's go to 95, give or take, and see if that, you know, makes the difference. And it did make some difference. It wasn't until I came across this idea that there were people doing really, truly, strictly 100% carnivore and getting fantastic results, vastly better than even 95%. And so I hooked into that, and I was challenged actually by Raymond Nazon, who is a carnivore coach with Bella's Steak and Butter Gang. And he contacted me a couple of years ago and said, look, I want to coach you. And I was like, oh, son, that's brave, you know, wanting to have a go at coaching me. Are you sure you're really up for that? And he was like, yeah, I think I can help you. I think that 95% is great, but I think you should do 100 and, all of those. And I was like, all right, son, you're on. But I'll tell you what, we're going to do this open hand. We're going to do it live on camera on the YouTube channel. If you've got the kahunas to want to do this, let's do it properly in that way. And let's make it so, And so we did that. And we did a 1 month, 100% carnivore challenge in January of 2020, I think it was, or 21, one of those. And I had quite miraculous results in terms of body composition and general health markers, inflammation, disposition, everything really. And I thought, oh, this is crazy. I wonder if this works long term. And then right about that stage, all the nonsense started happening around the world with that thing that we can't talk about, that thing that's not a safe topic, that thing that gets you banned if you talk about it in a way that they don't like, that thing.
Sounds spicy.
Yeah, that one. And so, I got sort of distressed with all of the stuff that was going on there, and there were other issues involved with that, and et cetera, et cetera. And as part of that, my partner lost her job and blah, 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 because these companies had to shut down because they couldn't operate and all of this. And so I went back to sort of the default behavior of 90 to 95% carnivore, and my health fell to bits again. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is pretty clear. And then come January this year, Raymond was back in touch again, and he said, we're going to do this again because you've fallen off the wagon here. We need to get you back on track. You're one of the most important influences, he said. So he was blowing smoke, basically. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, of course I'm very, very important. Yes. And, yeah. He said, so you've got to be doing this properly. You've got to be setting the right example for people. So we're going to do this again. And only this time we're going to do 90 days, strict, 100%. But one of my biggest issues actually wasn't really a food-related issue. I was drinking too much. And as part of the program, you get control of yourself in all sorts of ways, including addictive behaviors like drinking or whatever else. And over 90 days, it was just absolutely stunning. There is a 5-minute video on my YouTube channel which outlines the before and after photos of 90 days on strict carnivore. The before photos were at sort of 90, 95%. The 5-10% transgression being low carbohydrate cider, the odd packet of potato crisps because that's what you do when you're drinking, and that's about it, actually. But those two things combined, so you've got seed oils, you've got oxidized seed oils, you've got carbohydrates, you've got oxalates, and you've got alcohol and the sugar that comes along even with the low carbohydrate version of the cider. Yeah, anyway, so there's dad bod basically in the before photo. There's the apple-shaped 50-year-old man thing, the sort of thing that you don't ever want to look like. And it was horrific to me. And then 90 days later, go and have a look for yourselves after this. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth looking at.
I'll share the link to the video.
Yeah, it's, to go from apple-shaped dad bod to 6-pack in 90 days. Incredible.
Who doesn't want that?
Well, exactly. Why wouldn't you?
And especially like, the dramatic difference with, you were already obviously very strongly meat based. You're just having like a few things outside of that. And then to see that marked difference, I think is just incredible. I think it's, it's a testament to how damaging this stuff is to our system, and how just like a little bit can, just really offset your system and your metabolism in such ways that it carries a, much greater effect than just the percentage of your calories or the percentage of your diet that it incorporates. Just that first bit derails the system, and then you can sort of pack onto that and further throw it off the tracks, but it's already off the tracks.
you know.
Exactly.
And yeah, so that, I mean, and I think it's a very powerful, lesson for people, when they see that and they see just this little offset and they go, wow, like that's made such huge. Like for me, I have a complete aversion to anything plant, and that's because I've seen the difference it makes. And when I sort of got off all this stuff and I was doing this consciously, not just like when, 20 whatever years ago, when I was just like avoiding plants altogether, I'm doing this consciously now. I'm like, okay, this makes sense for my biology. I could see the difference. And I remember thinking back, I'm like, how I felt basically the rest of my life. I basically felt horrible my whole life. I didn't even realize it. And now I don't. And then I eat certain things and I don't feel as amazing anymore. And so I really have an aversion to that. And now I have no interest in doing that. So I think it's, instead of being, something that we feel down about and being like, well, damn it, I screwed up, I'm no good at this, just looking at that and be like, it's actually a really good lesson. You look at this and you're just like, yeah, I really don't want that. I really don't want to live like that. I really don't want to feel like that. And now I'm going to be, more resolved to not do that. Like you say, it's like just a little bit throws you off track. And so now you really don't want to even go off even a little bit.
Yep. That's it.
Yeah. Did you said you were keto for like 26 years though.
Yeah.
So is that pretty strict keto the whole time?
Pretty well, yeah.
Yeah. That was I mean, obviously, you did your video on sort of rebutting Paul Saladino's, take on, ketosis, long-term ketosis being bad for you. And obviously I think that doesn't really pass the smell test, when you have entire populations and civilizations that have never eaten carbohydrates generationally. Clearly, this isn't causing, huge detriments to their health. But I mean, I mean, but they can argue that, it's like, well, Inuits, they have this, some little variation that makes it okay for them. But, that doesn't explain why you, a non-Inuit, has had great success at it for 26 years.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's this idea that some of the influencers and academics and even professionals, semi-professionals, people who are psychiatrists that think that qualifies them to be nutritionists are saying that being in ketosis all the time is problematic in terms of thyroid function issues. It can be problematic in terms of electrolyte wasting, for example, all the sort of things that Paul Saladino has been talking about, among others. He's not the only one doing it, let's be fair. I myself, when I started the ketogenic diet, and it was all fresh and new and all of that 20-something, 27 years ago, whatever it was, something like that. Back then, we kind of thought the idea of the ketogenic diet was to be in ketosis and to produce ketones and to have ketones. Actually, that's not the case. There are still people that still feel that way, think that way, teach that way even. To the point where you've still got people every single week, I don't know how many times I see people coming on social media sites and asking the absolute experts that person these sites, will this kick me out of ketosis if I do that? As if being kicked out of ketosis is a bad thing. Well, it's not a bad thing. You are supposed to cycle out periodically. And the way that you get cycled out of ketosis is by consuming a reasonable bolus of protein, which will be gluconeogenic in nature, and thus kick you out of ketosis for several hours, thus resetting your kidneys' ability to retain your electrolytes, thus sending the message to your thyroid that all is well, you've been fed, etc., thus preventing all of these problems. Folks that have issues with electrolytes or with thyroid function on a long-term ketogenic diet, almost invariably these people have consumed an insufficient amount of protein for them. So I can't put a number on it. You must eat X number of grams of protein a day, because I am 62 kilograms dripping wet, for example, and I'm basically sedentary. I'm over 50 years of age. My needs are not remotely similar to Anthony's, who is 5 years or so younger. Possibly you'd be over 100 kilos, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Plus, still active, still playing sport. Okay, I play cricket once a week, which is not particularly demanding. So he's going to need vastly more protein than I'm going to need to kick him out of ketosis on a daily basis. But if he doesn't eat enough protein for him, he will run into that problem. He will start electrolyte wasting. He will start getting cramps and palpitations. His thyroid function will go off. He'll start losing his hair. You know, things like that. It fell out when I was 28, by the way. That's what happened to Paul. Paul is very, very active, and he's a bigger bloke than I am. He's saying, oh, I was eating all this protein and blah, blah. The other thing that Paul did wrong is he was stuffing his face with organ meats.
Yeah, we've talked
mistake.
about this a little. Be interesting to hear your perspective on that.
That's an absolute mistake. When you look at the makeup of a beast in terms of the proportion of the edible portion of that beast, that is flesh, by which I mean muscle meat, and what proportion of it is, for example, liver, most potentially problematic organs. What I suggest to people is there's no problem with eating liver so long as you eat it in that proportion.
Which I'm guessing would be like one 100th of the muscle meat that you're eating, something like that.
In practice, my intake of liver is none, ever.
Yeah, I'm not mad about
it's
the
not
taste.
necessary, and B, it's yucky.
Yeah.
That's a technical term. You can use that if you like.
Yeah, I've experienced that yuckiness too.
Well, I mean, and that should tell you something, you know, if your palate is telling you like, you know, no, this is not desirable, you know, it's likely that your body's telling you, no, we don't want those nutrients, or there's too many of them, or we've had enough. Or it, you know, it's bitter and it's bad tasting, that there's something in there that's actively harmful. And I, you know, so that's the idea that people say, it's like, well, you know, you need liver, but if you don't like it, then take this supplement. I think that's completely backward. If you don't like it, then you don't need it. Really, that was my thought on it anyway.
Exactly. Unless, of course, you have a business selling desiccated organs.
Well,
in which case you have to promote the eating of organs and say it's necessary.
Yeah.
You must eat nose to tail. Great. How did the last nose you ate taste, Paul?
Yeah. Like, yeah, well, that's the thing too, is, you know, you're talking about proportionality, you know, if you took down a Cape buffalo or something like that, you as an individual will be eating that thing for the next 3 years, you know, 4 years if it's a big one. And how many livers does it have?
Just the
you
one.
know? Yeah. So
hopefully.
Right. But, you know, so, you know, you're going to have one liver for that entire multi-year period, you know, call it 2 years. Let's be nice about it. One liver for 2 years, like that's the proportionality there. So the idea that you're just eating, you know, multitudes of organs and in plentiful supply, you know, it doesn't really fit, you know, and also, you know, it's clearly in the record that there, you know, a lot of different, you know, human populations really did not live nose to tail. You know, the Inuit really couldn't. You know, the livers of sea mammals, you know, predatory sea mammals are very toxic. Their vitamin A levels. You know, seals and then even more concentrated in polar bear. You know, polar bear liver will just I think even just like a bite of that will have enough vitamin A to kill you. So, you know, it doesn't follow that we have to be nose to tail, because there are plenty of examples of people not being nose to tail. I've never been nose to tail. I've eaten liver. I've literally bought liver twice in my carnivore journey, and it was fine, and I never wanted it again. And so, that was me with that.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And, having seen some footage of Inuit doing Inuit things, generally there's quite a bit of sharing around food. The men will sit around after a successful hunt and eat their fill before they pack up the remainder to take it back. But all the entrails, all the organs, especially the livers, guess who gets that? It's the dogs.
Yeah.
But one idea that Anthony and I have kind of thrown around to do with overconsumption of organs is that when you eat a lot of carbohydrates, it can block nutrient absorption in your body.
Yeah.
And so if you're eating a heap of organs, perhaps the compulsion or the need to then eat a heap of carbohydrates to kind of counter this hypervitaminosis might be necessary. Just interested to hear if you think we could be on the right track.
Yeah, that could well be one of the drivers of the what is ostensibly an addictive personality trait. We know for a fact, no question, unequivocally, absolutely, that the exact requirement for human beings in terms of carbohydrates on a daily basis in their diet is not 1 single gram ever, none at all. So people who say, oh, you absolutely must eat carbohydrates are people who either are addicted to eating carbohydrates and want to justify that behavior desperately by any means possible, or they are people with an axe to grind, a bottom right-hand corner to subserve, or both. I think our friend from Costa Rica is both, but that's for another day. Mostly people don't have a business, don't have an axe to grind that way, but what they do have is an addiction to carbohydrates, which could be driven by all sorts of things, including the mechanism you're talking about there. And as such, people will go out of their way to try and justify their behavior. And it doesn't make it right.
Well, and that's the thing is that I think that's very much hitting the nail on the head, because they're now saying not only is it okay to eat carbohydrates, but you should eat carbohydrates. You need to eat carbohydrates, and that when someone has a drug or alcohol addiction, they're constantly trying to push this on other people, because if other people are doing it too, then they're not doing something wrong. And so it's like, well, this is just what everyone is doing, so I'm just part of the norm. And that's how it definitely feels to me, especially because now they're doing things like like people are drinking orange juice, they're getting half their calories from orange juice. So it's like you can't really say that you're living in a primal fashion, because first of all, those oranges didn't exist all that long ago, and certainly people weren't juicing, even back in the Roman and Greek era, and unless you count, like, I guess olive oil, I guess that's juicing in a way, but but that's that would be it. And so I think that and then they'll talk about like, well, since they did that, like I think Paul looked at his HbA1c, and that dropped as well, and some other markers improved. But the thing that they don't really talk about is that he's like working out for like 3 hours a day. He's surfing for like 3 hours a day, doing this like very strenuous high activity level, and of course that's going to play a major role on your health and your HbA1c. And was he doing that before, or was he working out to the same extent? I'm fairly sure that the timing was that he started getting unwell, and then he moved down to Costa Rica sort of to focus on his health a little more, and then picked up his activity level quite significantly. So there's confounding factors there. It's not just the one thing that he changed.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah. So I mean, the other thing he's picked up since he's gone down there is a couple of 100,000 subscribers and supporters. to absolutely, maybe you're saying he wanted to focus on his health. Maybe he also wanted to focus on being a YouTube influencer as well. I'm not sure if he's actually ever practiced as a psychiatrist.
No, I don't think so.
You know, he did his residency, and then I think he kind of finished that and then went straight into the world of being a YouTube promoter. So he's one of these guys, if that is correct, he's one of these guys like not Dr. Michael Greger, who has never practiced medicine in his life either.
Dr. Greger, he's a
If you
strange
don't eat
fellow.
your fruits and vegetables, you might die. And also make sure that you go and get a vasectomy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, if he's gotten a vasectomy, maybe that's a step in the right direction.
Well, perhaps, yeah.
I think he's already like, you know, probably chemically castrated himself with all like the plant toxins and like lack of cholesterol.
Yeah. Did you know that he is significantly younger than I am?
I heard something about that. There was like a photo of him with Sean Baker, and he's like, 10 years younger than Sean Baker or something. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. You whippersnappers.
Yeah. There was a great picture, that I saw, and he was sitting next to an actual 8-year-old girl,
yes,
who had bigger arms than he did.
Yeah,
and he's obviously a shorter, slender person, but he is still a grown ass man, and like that, an 8-year-old girl, a slender 8-year-old girl should really not be able to outgun a grown-ass man. So that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, because otherwise you don't see things in proportion to other the other things around you. You just see this picture of this person that could be however tall, and he's not a large man.
Yeah, I've spoken to people who've come across him in real life and have eyeballed him and shook his hand for some reason. And they tell me invariably that the presentation there is quite frail.
Yeah,
really quite frail.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Like, if that's what you want to look like, if it's the quality of life you want, copy him.
Well, it's Dr. Furman as well. He made a big splash with his books. It was like Eat to Live or something like that, and it was the Gomes diet, so greens, onions, mushrooms, beans, berries, and seeds. That was his original iteration. I think he's changed it from there, but he was slender and looked like he was sort of a healthy, slim, middle-aged man. Now he looks very unhealthy, and he's he's sarcopenic, and he looks like he's a stiff breeze is going to break his hip, and like it's not really going to end well, and he's talking about like, oh, well, you don't want all this muscle because you're going to be using more energy, and that burns out your life force faster. I'm like, I don't think that's how it works, man.
This is an example of people justifying their behavior desperately by any means they possibly can, because there is absolutely no logic behind that.
No, I don't think so. The justification for this was something looking at like NFL linemen who ate a lot and had a lot of weight, and they had a shorter life expectancy than other things, and it must have been because of the weight that they had, because they were just larger humans. I was like, that's not even trying to be rigorous in any form. I mean, it's just like nothing else going on there between the rest of the population. They're not just getting 13 concussions every weekend, and battering their body, potentially using illicit substances to help their performance so that they can make it in the NFL and things like
make
that.
money.
I mean, a few things happening there.
Yeah. And the real sad thing about society, I think the real thing that's lacking out there is a requirement for people to be taught and to understand what science is and what it is not, what it can do and what it cannot do. And anyone who is running around saying science proves this or that or the other thing, as that regards to any aspect of hard human health outcomes, is kidding themselves, because there is no experimental, empirical research science available anywhere in human nutrition. What there is a ring-fenced area of ideology and theology underpinned by the almighty dollar and bought and paid for. And it's an echo chamber that if you step outside of, stick your head above the parapet and say something other than the accepted narrative, you get shot down. It's the most anti-scientific fraternity, for want of a better term, anywhere in science that I've seen, anywhere other than climate change. But that's also for another day. Another unsafe topic to talk about on YouTube, by the way.
Have to have that one behind some sort of safe wall, I think.
Yeah.
Share it encrypted on the interwebs.
That's the one.
I think we had Simon and I had one episode talking about just regenerative agriculture and things like that, and then so that sort of topic slipped in. Sure enough, got a warning sticker on that. You can see my YouTube channel sort of progression at that time. I was getting somewhere close to, like, for those previous 2 months, because it just started hitting a wave and things started getting popular. I got something like 15,000 subscribers in 1 month, and then I was going to get 15,000 the next month, and then that one hit sort of at the end of the month, and it sort of just dipped to like 13,000, and all of a sudden down to 3,000 for the rest of the time. Didn't come up. There was one
Back in your box, Chafee.
That's
it.
Yeah,
that was it.
Disinformationist you.
And I had like a short that went viral, and at that time it had like 2.7 million views, and you could see just the views going up like this, and all of a sudden it just went up like that, and then just flatline right then. And so it had 2.7 million views then. It still has 2.7 million views. And it was months later.
Because suddenly the entire population of the world changed absolutely fundamentally at a level of their personalities and what interests them, and your video was no longer of interest suddenly to people. That's what happened.
Well, it just hit absolutely everyone who was interested in it, and that was it. There's no more.
It actually just maxed out. It maxed out quickly.
Saturated now.
Yeah, that's it. It got everyone. It did its job. It hit absolutely everyone who gave a crap about it, and that was it. It was done.
God, an absolute veteran of the world of being shadow banned by the fine folk at YouTube. I can tell you, that's for another day too, but I can tell you stories about, I can even show you my back office and give you examples. They don't even hide it. They make no attempt to hide. Because the thing is, for those that don't understand, those of us who are trying to make a living by being YouTube influencers, and this is my job, by the way, I don't have a Brand X job anymore. I do YouTube, I do private consultancies, and I'm involved in marketing an adult stem cell supplement that promotes the release of your own CD34 plus stem cells.
That's interesting.
We can talk about that at some point too, if you like.
Yeah, but do it in another episode, I think.
Absolutely, I think we should, because it's really, really a very, very important area. Those are my three income streams. I don't do anything else anymore. So I'm absolutely behooven on being able to get my face in front of people. And the problem that we have in this industry is that there is really only one decent captive audience, and it's the people who watch YouTube. That's where all my contacts professionally come from. It's all electronic. I never leave the house to work. I don't see clients face to face. I haven't sold a bottle of stem cell enhancing product to an actual human person that I've spoken to ever. It's all online stuff. And the problem is YouTube wields 100% absolute authoritarian control over your visibility, overtly, over your existence even. If YouTube decides I am persona non grata at any point and they want to delete my channel entirely, or all my channels entirely, for any reason they should see fit, at their absolute will and discretion, they can. Oof. They can take down any video they like and apply weeks and months of ban. And it's an impossible thing if you are espousing a narrative that's not the acceptable narrative.
But I think the trajectory of views on this video just absolutely plummeted.
Well, there you go. Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is that YouTube doesn't seem to care on their algorithm if you mention this particular fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's, and your channel got taken down for a while.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Did-
What I actually did is I put it in stasis for
Yeah.
several weeks, because what happened was I made a video about a vegan loving individual who said a bunch of things that were fundamentally, patently incorrect in fact, and demonstrably so, which you're allowed to do. You can do that. You can critique people online. That's fine. One of the rules that YouTube has, however, though, is you can't mention anybody's appearance in a derogatory way. So if I say this person looks skeletal, if somebody complains about it, they can take that video down, because that's bullying and harassment of somebody if you do that.
Okay.
But okay, fine, I got that strike. I learned from that it's not necessarily safe to mention anybody's appearance. You can allude to it. You can talk about someone's health presentation, but you can't say, goodness me, look how ugly this person's teeth are, or wow, look how skeletal this person is, or whatever. You know, it's there. But also the line is not clear. It's grey and blurry in the way it's worded in the terms and conditions, and that's on purpose, so that YouTube can actually play favourites and do what they want to do. Anyway, I got that strike. That was fine. I got a week ban. Fine, whatever. And then after that week ban, I started uploading videos that I had taken down, because when I got the ban saying you can't mention someone's appearance, of my 800 videos or so, about 750 of those would mention someone's appearance. So I took the lot down to protect from extra strikes, because there was someone complaining it was an attack by someone. Okay. So I started uploading videos again, and I uploaded a video that was a live chat I had with Phil Escott and his co-authors on his book, The Red Pill Revolution. And during that discussion, we mentioned that thing that can't be mentioned, that is a viral thing, apparently, some kind of epidemic that may or may not be occurring in the world, that may or may not be of importance to people, etc. And one or two of the gentlemen, not even me, one or two of the gentlemen on that stream espoused opinions that were not in line with those of the fine World Health Organization. And as such, they took that video down and gave me strike 2. Even though that video had previously been up on my channel and visible for over 11 months without a problem. So now now I'm in the sights a bit here. Now they're really having a crack. So what I then had to do is take down all my videos, every single one, because I can't anymore have any trust with YouTube. They're not a good faith actor here, clearly. They're trying to be punitive towards me. So I had to take down all my videos and start again from the ground up. So that's what I've done. And as such, that's a real cost on your momentum, your views, your visibility, everything. So basically the take-home message is that everybody should go and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon, so that YouTube completely will fail to advise you when I post new material. Also, you should post comments under all my videos for Al Gore and his rhythms. And you should hit the like button on everything, or the unlike button. It doesn't matter which, so long as you hit one of them. And binge watch my stuff on repeat. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. Well, definitely people should. And you have a couple channels as well. You're still running the multiple channels?
I am, but I don't have time to upload regularly to them all. Some of the other more minor channels are actually more like venues for this is where I am if my main channel disappears. It's like almost like an insurance, but there are different videos there, and there are different characters I play on different videos, like the Field Marshal. Yellow Ted shows up on one of those channels quite often. He's a good mate of mine, completely uncontrollable, but that's for another day as well. But you can find all my YouTube channels listed in the show notes of just about every video on my channel. If you just look under the blurb, there'll be a link to all the different channels and stuff. Also, people should be aware that I have a parallel offering on another platform where all my old videos that had to disappear from YouTube still exist and can still be viewed.
Oh, that's
And
good.
you could probably find that particular other platform if you took an odyssey of discovery around the internet. Such an odyssey might lead you to find that other platform.
Do a bit of digging.
Yep.
Well, I mean, but given that you can make a living talking to people on YouTube, obviously there's a big chunk of people like us who are interested in what you have to say. I mean, what kind of positive progress are you seeing out there particularly in the nutrition space?
I think that the truth about nutrition science, or lack thereof, the understanding of the actual hard science, the real science outside of the ring-fenced area of so-called nutrition science that actually does inform us on what the appropriate human diet is. I think the understanding of that is going up. Often now I'm seeing people who are subscribed to my channel answering questions in the chat or in the comments underneath in the exact way I would. So the message is getting through and it's being disseminated and shared with others. That's a great thing. Also, invariably on every given week, I might get half a dozen or more emails from people saying, "Thank you, you've saved my life."
Fantastic.
I also get several emails from people who don't like me very much either as well. But usually those sort of people that like to eat their fruits and vegetables and tell me that if they don't do that, they might die. Those kind of people. Yeah. So I'm quite a polarizing character still, even though I no longer conduct myself the way I used to, the sort of stuff that YouTube didn't really enjoy. Yeah, I'm still as abrasive and confrontational as I can be, without quite so many short words or mentioning anybody's appearance or talking about unsafe topics to discuss where people's opinions are not allowed.
Yeah. Well, if you're upsetting people and you're clearly doing something right, like they don't generally censor people that they can argue with, because if you can just shut someone down in debate, you don't need to shut them down by other means. You can just be like, all right, well, you're wrong, and here's how, and
almost nobody is prepared to get in the ring with me and even try and have a debate with me.
I would expect not. I've there've been people. I've been trying to get a hold of Lane Norton. I mean, just constantly ever since that guy came on my radar. I was just like, even just like just a friendly discussion. It doesn't have to be a fight. We're just like, hey, let's hash it out. Let's talk. You try to convince me, I'll try to convince you, and just do it in a friendly fashion. Absolutely no chance. That guy has never responded to a single thing I've ever sent him. Maybe he just hasn't noticed me. I mean, who am I? He's a way bigger following than I do. But for whatever reason, I haven't been able to get any sort of interaction with him. But at the same time, some of his little spawn will sometimes like say, oh, well, Lane Norton says this, that, and the other. Like, if you really knew what you're talking about, you would try to debate him, but you never will you? Almost is like, buddy, I've been trying. You set that up.
Yeah,
like,
twice
I'll
on
be
Sundays.
there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like anytime, man.
Lane Norton also thinks that mass is conserved. So whatever.
Wait, he thinks what?
He thinks mass is conserved.
So
and he
like
thinks the first
mass?
law of thermodynamics indicates that calories in, calories out is a valid argument. Anyone that thinks that, good luck.
Well, I mean, even even if it were so, I mean, it's so much more complicated than that. I mean, the idea that you can just calculate how much energy that you're going to expend in a day without very sophisticated equipment is nonsensical. And depending on what you eat, your metabolism will change. I mean, you were talking about your thyroid and giving yourself enough nutrition so that you trigger your thyroid, say, hey, we're not starving here. This has been shown by multiple studies that if you actually limit your caloric intake, your body thinks you're starving. It actually reduces your metabolism by 10 to 15%. And so you will actually burn less calories. So your calories in goes down, but your calories out goes down as well. So, it's not as simple as all that. And even just being in ketosis as opposed to, eating carbohydrates, you on average, you will burn 300 more kilocalories a day when in ketosis than you will, or on a ketogenic diet than you will eating carbohydrates. So, you know, it says, oh, just eat whatever you want, just as long as the calories in, calories out match. And so like, okay, no, first of all, but like, second of all, how would you ever know? You're never going to know,
Exactly.
you know?
All right, boys. Unfortunately, my time's up for today. I've got a race. I've got a client contact hour starting now. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'd love to come back again, perhaps when we're not so limited on time, and we can really dive down the rabbit hole of some of this stuff. Again.
Absolutely.
Cool.
No, sure. That'd be great.
So
Thanks
much
for coming.
All
Really
right,
appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. See you.